Fox News reporting the truth about ACORN.
Hello, I'm Megyn Kelly. What is ACORN and what is it up to? The Association of Community Organizations for Reform Now says it has more than 400,000 member families and more than 1,200 chapters across the country. It also has hundreds of affiliated organizations, some with global reach. And it is now in the middle of a growing national scandal, in part thanks to explosive undercover videotape widely broadcast over the past weeks. So is ACORN as corrupt as critics say, or as dangerous? We start with the man who founded the controversial organization and ran it for 38 years until June 2008. He has never given an in-depth television interview until now.
I would say I'm a dangerous guy. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They're right to be worried about me because I do have this small skill set, which is I know how to build organizations, and they, fight for their rights and they win.
Born in Wyoming, raised in New Orleans, Wade Rathke entered Massachusetts Williams College in 1966. He would soon drop out, he says, to organize against the Vietnam War. Then, in 1968, he went to work full-time for the National Welfare Rights Organization. And what was your background that, led you to become interested in something like welfare rights?
I was young and had my eyes open and listened to what everything I was hearing and couldn't resist being involved in doing something about it.
Did you have a mentor at the time or somebody who you idealized?
I needed a mentor. In fact, I probably still do. But in welfare rights, the head of welfare rights was Dr. George Wiley at the time.
Wiley was an influential civil rights leader and the man behind the National Welfare Rights Organization. Its mission was to organize welfare recipients into a political force and to pressure the government for more and more benefits. Rathke says some welfare rights organizers even believed that if they added enough people to the welfare rolls, radical political and economic change would follow.
There was a theory that if you could just flood the American welfare system with welfare recipients, you could break the bank, so to speak.
Stanley Kurtz is a senior fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center. He has done extensive research on the National Welfare Rights Organization and on ACORN.
That would force the federal government to create a guaranteed minimum income. So it was really a strategy to provoke socialism through a kind of crisis of the welfare state system. They used to flood welfare offices with recipients who would protest, demand more welfare payments.
Their record in the entire field of welfare, in their entire field of human relations, is one of colossal and almost complete failure.
Then Governor Ronald Reagan of California felt that the welfare rights organizers were destroying the very lives they claimed to be helping.
They have tried this raising of people by mass movements. Their whole big government approach has institutionalized poverty, perpetuating its degradation until welfare becomes a way of life under the second and third generation of the recipient families.
And within a generation, Democrat Bill Clinton would in essence embrace Reagan's observations, ending welfare as we know it. Rathke laments that development, but he did tell us that by 1970 he came to see Wiley's welfare rights group as a sinking ship, that the break the bank strategy, while an exciting call to arms, simply wasn't working. And neither was Wiley's narrow focus on only welfare rights.
I thought I saw some things that we could do a little differently, maybe a little better, and convince them to let me try this thing, ACORN.
Rathke says Wiley agreed to back him only if Rathke would try his new ideas in a place where welfare rights needed some help.
Welfare rights was trying to impact on Wilbur Mills, who was head of the all-powerful Ways and Means Committee. It was responsible for welfare legislation, and he was from the 2nd District in Little Rock. So I was willing to live in Arkansas. I'd never been there before in my life.
In June 1970, Rathke launched ACORN in this brick house on West 15th Street in Little Rock. Back then, it stood for Arkansas Community Organizations for Reform Now. Rathke never did get Chairman Mills to deliver on welfare legislation, but ACORN was to be about much more than welfare anyway.
We were trying to deal with the whole broad spectrum of low and moderate income families. In the beginning, it was just knocking on doors, talking to people about the issues they cared about in their neighborhoods, whether or not they thought there was an organization that they wanted to join with their neighbors and try to solve problems that they saw every day and hadn't been able to figure out a way to get fixed.
He really made it a multi-issue organization so that it could protest or demand just about anything that had to do with the redistribution of wealth.
ACORN came in as an organization to reform public policy and to redistribute wealth in an equitable way.
And to support political candidates who would advance those goals, says Annie Abrams, one of Rathke's early organizers.
ACORN was the endorsement that many sought.
Is it blatantly socialist?
It's not blatantly socialist, but I think you can say that it's de facto socialist. In effect, they're socialists without wanting to say so.
Would you describe yourself as a socialist?
I don't know socialism, not socialism, what that really means. We're not out advocating for a economic system. We're advocating for the rights that we have as a citizen to be fully respected. The very motto of ACORN when I was there was taken from the state motto of Arkansas, which in Latin, I'll save you the Latin, but was "the people shall rule." We really believe in that, you know, and we may be some of the last people who really do.
The rest of the ACORN platform, now that you mention it, actually says, and I quote, "We are the masses of many, not the forces of few. We will continue our fight until the American way is just one way, until we have shared the wealth, until we have won our freedom." Sounds awfully socialistic.
Oh, that just, you know, it just brings such a smile to my face to hear you read that. You know, at convention after convention, people would stand up and read that preamble to the platform, almost as if it were a prayer or an anthem. And there's also a line you haven't gotten to, which would sort of poke a hole right in the balloon of whatever these friends on the right wing are saying, because it talks about having the right to be rich and free. Now, is that socialism? Or to talk about citizen wealth, that you would have basic entitlements?
Sharing the wealth.
Do you see sharing the wealth in there?
Yes, I do.
Oh.
Until we have shared the wealth.
Shared the wealth. Yes, we do believe in equitable distribution of, you know, any benefits and rights that people have. So yeah, we stand accused of that. We're guilty of believing people should have a better life in this country. I don't think that's socialism.
By 1975, Rathke would open ACORN branches in Texas and South Dakota. By 1980, ACORN was in 20 states across the country. By 2008, Rathke had managed to build the vast organization he told us he envisioned right from the very beginning.
If I could figure out a way to make something happen in Arkansas, we thought, well, we'll make it happen everywhere.
Has ACORN been good for America?
I'd say ACORN has been pretty rotten for America.
Fox News reporting the truth about ACORN. We'll return right after the break.
The captioning for this program is brought to you by